Welcome. Welcome, everyone. So happy to be here today. This is Ritual and Science. I'm Lisa Lansing, and this is a space where ancient wisdom meets modern biology, where the nervous system is sacred, and where healing becomes intentional instead of accidental. Here we explore the rituals, practices, and science that help us feel safe in our bodies, resilient in our lives, and rooted in something deeper than survival. So, this is a new show, which means it's changing often. And like earlier today, I went live, or I thought I did, and did my whole show only to discover that I didn't go live. So, I'm still learning. But as I move forward with the show, I'll be sitting with shamans, mystics, lightworkers, functional medicine practitioners, lab innovators, and creators of healing technologies, not to choose one path over the other, but to build a bridge between them, because you don't have to choose between spirit and science. You are designed for both. Let's begin. So, I want to talk a little bit about low energy. Low energy is easily one of the most common issues that doctors and functional health practitioners hear about from their clients every day. I just wish I had more energy. Oh, I just feel I'm so tired in the morning, and then I have my coffee and I get it going, and then I crash in the afternoon. People are tired, feeling fatigued more than ever before. And this is really frustrating. And there is a correlation here, I just want to say, between the increase in fatigue and our use of tablets and devices. So just keep that in mind. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, these are really powerful, invisible, hidden stressors that can really drain us. But what's really interesting is that most people resort to drinking more coffee, matcha, or monsters during the day to make up for that lack of energy. And while this will work for a while, eventually the body will catch up and these artificial sources of energy will no longer work. And that's why it's so important to instead try to get to the root of why you're losing your energy and why you're feeling so fatigued. And that brings us to one of the topics I want to cover today, and that is the thyroid. The thyroid is a really interesting endocrine gland. It sits right here in the throat. And it is responsible for energy production and metabolism. It regulates how strongly your cells can do their jobs across the body. And I'm not just talking about food metabolism here. I'm talking about cellular metabolism. That's what cells do. They metabolize, right? And then temperature regulation. The thyroid helps keep us at a good temperature, not too cold, not too hot. So if you're feeling really cold a lot lately, and especially in the hands and the feet, that could be a sign of thyroid dysregulation. And then whole body systems supports. This is the third thing that the thyroid does, which is really incredible. So the thyroid hormone is essentially needed in every cell in the body. And that means that it essentially affects every other organ system and helps these systems work the way they should. So for brain, it helps with cognition and development, with heart function, it helps with rhythm. For digestion, it helps with GI function, it helps with muscle control, bone health, skin, nails, and hair. Growth and quality is explicitly noted here when it comes to the thyroid, right? If you really feel that you're getting thinning hair, this is really common for women, and it's often related, not always, to the thyroid. So people typically have these kinds of complaints, right? They have complaints like, oh, I'm fatigued. I have really low energy. I'm feeling cold, especially the hands and the feet. Weight gain, constipation, dry skin, depression, mood cognition, issues, like cognition issues, are really going to be more like brain fog and stuff like that. You're just not going to feel clear. And the low mood portion is really, you just don't feel like you have your spark, right? And that can lead to depression. And some people will say, well, my hair is so thin and dry, and I have a puffy face, and sometimes my eyes are really puffy, and my voice gets a little hoarse. So these would all be symptoms that we would relate to sort of what we call a sluggish thyroid. And then you might have completely different symptoms, like you're feeling hot and you have increased sweating, not related to hot flashes, right? You have a racing heart and palpitations. You have a lot of anxiety and nervousness. You kind of shake a little bit and you're worried. Do I have Parkinson's? Weight loss. Maybe you're pooping a lot or you have diarrhea. It can keep you up at night, insomnia, and again, thinning hair. So this is the opposite extreme. This is when your thyroid is a little hyperactive. And so, but today, most people are feeling fatigued. And so I have so many women coming to me and saying, do you think it could be my thyroid? Can we look at my thyroid? Because there's so much information out there about thyroid and energy. So when someone goes to the doctor and they tell their doctor, oh, I'm feeling really tired, the doctor will run typically one marker, and it will be included in some of the blood work that you have done. And that marker is called TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. And what it does is it is something that actually is not created in the thyroid. It's created in the pituitary gland, and it stimulates the thyroid to create the hormones that it needs. And so I'm sure you can see that this could be a little problematic. I'm not going to say that this marker doesn't tell us anything, because it does. But sometimes that marker can be more indicative of the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus than it can be about the thyroid. And so that's why in the functional health space, we want to see a completely different type of test. And I'm just going to draw a little picture here. I've got this really fun technology, and so I'm just going to try to draw a little picture here so you can see what I'm talking about. So let me see how I can do this here. Bear with me. Ta-da! Awesome. Okay. So let's just take a look at how the thyroid works and why it is that in functional health, we want to see some of these other pictures. We want to see these other values. So at the top, we have the hypothalamus, and it is going to create thyroid releasing hormone, and it sends that to, and I'm just going to make this look like an upside down heart. I guess it kind of looks like a butt. Sorry about that. The pituitary gland. And the pituitary creates TSH, and TSH is going to go down into the thyroid gland. And so this one's a little bit harder for me to draw, but I'm going to try to do it like that. And this is the thyroid. Whoop. So keep in mind that in order for the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland to do their jobs and send the proper signaling down the line, they both need high quality zinc. Why is that so funny? They both need high quality levels of zinc. So you don't want to be zinc deficient. Now, the thyroid, in order to do its job, it needs iodine, zinc, and tyrosine. And what the thyroid is going to do is it is going to make two different hormones. It is going to make T3. Now, this is the usable thyroid hormone that we're looking for, and it makes about 20% of what the body needs. Now, the other thing that it makes is T4. So T4 and T3 both have quite a bit of iodine, and essentially what has to happen is an atom needs to be removed from T4 in order to make it into T3. So that's interesting. But in order for all of this to happen, the body also needs sodium, potassium, and calcium. Sodium and potassium are signaling the enzymatic processes, whereas calcium is signaling some of the transportation needs that these things have. So now what we need is 100% T3, and we've only got 20%. So what happens is that the conversion of T4 into T3 happens through something called peripheral conversion. And that happens in, let's see if I can draw these things. It's a pretty bad liver. In the, trying to make like lima beans, kidneys, and the gut. Now, the other 80% is going to come from here. But what are some things needed in order for this conversion to happen? Well, the body needs selenium, it needs iron, and it needs zinc, as well as all of the other minerals needed to keep these other organs happy: the liver, the kidneys, the gut, and that involves a lot of different minerals. So now I just want to make a little mention of something. So what happens if the liver is really clogged? Well, we're going to have a hard time getting the 80% here. And what if the kidneys are having an issue? Well, same thing. And the big issue when it comes to the gut, now the liver is going to give us about 60% of this, of what it needs, right? And these two pretty much do the other 20%. Well, most of it's coming from the gut. The kidneys and the liver do 60%. Very little from the kidneys, but some. And then the gut is doing the 20% here. But what happens in the gut if you have inflammation? Well, when you have inflammation, the body doesn't want to produce T3. It doesn't do it. It can't do it well because stress, inflammation, illness, and pharmaceutical drugs, all of those things, all of them, and specifically the lack of healthy carbs, all of them are going to tell the body, no, we're going to shunt this over to a different hormone called reverse T3, and this is not usable. This reverse T3 is not something that the body can use. Now, whatever's left over of your T3 is going to go directly into your cells. And in order for your cells to receive the T3, you need good vitamin A, vitamin D, and omegas, because you want to keep the cellular walls really healthy with no inflammation. So that is sort of the process here that we're looking at. So you can see that just getting this number here, a TSH, it's not going to be enough. Essentially, what the body does is if it has enough T4 and if it has enough T3, it tells comes back up here and it says, hey, we're good. We're good. We don't need any more TSH. And so then the signaling stops and we're not going to be making any TSH there. So if, on the other hand, there is a problem with the conversion, if we're having problems in the liver, in the kidneys, in the gut, we're not going to get to this 80% over here. It's just not going to happen. And so that is the problem that we face, is that then the body says, oh, well, we need more TSH. And so TSH will be on the rise. And that is why your doctor is going to look at it, because they can tell us when things are low, but it doesn't always tell us. So often, most of the time, some of these other things are going to be off. And unless we test for them, we can't help you with your thyroid. We absolutely must see all of these other values. And so what are some of those values that we're really looking for? We're looking for the TSH. We want T4. We want total and free. We also want total and free T3. And we want reverse T3, because this is going to paint a really lovely picture for us. And then the other thing that we're really interested in is looking at the antibodies. So antibodies are pretty important, and we want to take a look at specific antibodies. And the reason why the antibodies are so important is because it tells us, is your body creating antibodies to attack the thyroid? That's pretty important. So we've got the thyroid peroxidase antibodies, and those are the TPO. And then we have the thyroglobulin antibody, TGAB. And so when these are high, it can indicate couple of things. If they're really high, it can indicate an autoimmune condition. And that's why we want to look. We want to look and see, how are you doing? And keep in mind that in functional health, we're not trying to diagnose, but we can certainly see when you're on the pathway toward disease. And so even if you're not Hashimoto's yet, it would be good to see where you are. And then this reverse T3 tells us quite a bit about how stressed you are and what kinds of things are preventing these from creating T3 and instead shunting to the reverse T3. And again, some of those things include things like having dysbiosis in the gut. And what is dysbiosis? Well, dysbiosis is typically just an overgrowth of for lack of a better term, dysbiosis is a overgrowth of bad bacteria in the gut. And their cellular lining has something called a lipopolysaccharide, and that the presence of the lipopolysaccharides will ignite an immune response, and inflammation will take place. And so dysbiosis is often pretty common and can create a problem when it comes to converting T4 into T3 in the gut. And so if you're feeling tired and you just feel like nothing has helped and you've tried so many things, you might consider getting your thyroid tested. You can ask your doctor to do it, but often doctors can't do it. It's not that they won't do it. Well, maybe they won't do it, but typically it's because your insurance company won't cover it, because your insurance company doesn't think that you need to have it tested. And so you can get a thyroid test done between $80 and $130. So they're not as expensive as some of the other functional labs that range in the 700s. So it's considered really affordable. So if that's something that you wanted to do, you definitely, as a human being in America, you have access to a thyroid test. And you would want to make sure you were working with someone who could read it well for you and could help you develop some kind of protocol. Now, here's the thing about protocols is that they should always start with lifestyle. Right. So many of the issues that cause fatigue and cause thyroid dysfunction are lifestyle related. And that includes things like diet, rest, exercise, and your exposure to hidden stressors. And hidden stressors can be anything from, the poison in your cleaning products, for instance, that you use for your toilet, or the unresolved trauma that you have from years ago that never got worked out and it's still kind of looping in your brain. So those are considered hidden stressors. So really and truly, you want to look at your lifestyle first, because you may not need to ever go on any kind of supplementation. You can start with lifestyle, and diet's a big one. Anyone who has an autoimmune issue should be eliminating gluten for sure, possibly dairy and so many other things, soy, right? But getting rid of gluten is a really great way to start because of the inflammatory response that so many of us have and don't know. So diet changes, making sure you're getting those really healthy carbs, and then taking a look at your dinner plate and looking at your macronutrients. And are you getting enough proteins, carbs, and fats at every meal? And that's pretty important. So diet and then rest. Can you rest when you're awake? Because if you only rest at bedtime, then your body doesn't know how to be calm during the day. It only knows that it associates calm with sleep. So then your body will only rest when it's time to sleep. And it's really important that you find the ability to rest during the day when you're awake. Deep breathing, doing nothing, clearing your mind, sitting outside and doing nothing. Don't be on your phone. Don't read a book. Just observe the world. It's a practice called non-doing, and it's so beneficial for the body. So resting when you're awake. And then if you're not sleeping well, there are several tips and tricks you can do to get better sleep. So these are the first two steps, and then exercise. Don't over-exercise, don't under-exercise. And for those of you who are in the fitness world, as you age, you are more and more likely over-exercising. And over-exercising means that you are creating undue stress on your body. So for those of you who teach yoga, Pilates, gyrotonic, those types of things, you have to really watch that you're not over-teaching, because you could be creating a stress response and you don't even know it. And then we get into hidden stressors. Hidden stressors can be in your cleaning products. They can be the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth that's right by your bed, your 5 devices that are right by your head when you sleep at night. Get those out of the room if you can. A lot of people can't take their phone out of the room. Put the phone at the end of the bed at least, and at least try not to have it so close to the brain. And there are several other things you can do for a good night's sleep. And the hidden stressors like Wi-Fi, these things can disrupt your brain when you're sleeping and wake you up. And that's why it's so important to either turn off your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth or get the devices as far away as you can. So low energy can often be due to the thyroid. Unfortunately, when you go to the doctor, they're only going to run one lab marker, and that lab marker just isn't enough. So I hope that is a little bit helpful for you, and that you can see that thyroid health helps the entire body. And the first step is not supplementation. The first step would be looking at lifestyle and really working on lifestyle. And then what kinds of supplements would people take to help their thyroid? Well, it's typically the things that they need for the thyroid to run, right? You need a lot of good zinc, you need selenium and iron, and some people might even need multi-mineral, so that their sodium and potassium and calcium levels are doing really well. Some people need selenium. It just depends. So you would never just go out and order up a bunch of supplements. You would always, always, always test. Don't guess. So I'd love to hear if you have any questions for me. Again, you do have access to thyroid testing. If your doctor won't do it, there are plenty of functional health practitioners around the country that'd be happy to help you. So another thing that can really weigh people down is a heaviness that they carry in their hearts. But again, this is a hidden stressor because they don't even know that it's there. And I want to start by just looking at, I don't know if you can, let me see if I can lift this. Look at this beautiful picture here. This is called lamb's quarters. Lamb's quarters. And the keywords for this is flexible, heart-centered, inspired, intentional, intuitive, open-minded. And the affirmation is, my mind is open to the wisdom of my heart. Well, I pulled this card today before I did my sound bath. And what I find so interesting about it is that your heart carries a lot of information that can really wreck your energy. So when you are feeling that you're fatigued and you have low energy, it's always important to look at your heart. And when it comes to the sentence, my mind is open to the wisdom of my heart, the question is, what is the wisdom of your heart? And most of us say, oh, that's so easy. It's love, and it's forgiveness, and it's empathy and compassion, right? Yes, it is all of those things. That's true. But what else is coming from your heart? And what impediments could be there that are making your ability to access what's in your heart difficult? One of the things that can really pile up in the heart is called resentment. And we're going to address that. This is the perfect thing to address this time in the world today. So I think I've mentioned in several episodes that you are an inner ecosphere, you have an inner ecosystem, and that ecosystem has a physical body, a mental, emotional body, a spiritual body, and an energy body. And your soul, your divine spark that comes to you, there are 12 dimensions of your light body. Now, you are a light being, and your light is multidimensional. Every human has the capacity to do multidimensional work. Now, some people say we're only 6-dimensional, and some people say, no, there's only 8, or I learned 12, and I resonate with that, with these teachings. So that's why I like to stick to 12. And in order to access the wisdom from these other dimensions, there's a few things that are really necessary. And the first thing that you should do, and I think a lot of transformational coaches would talk about this, you should do this every day, all the time, and that is dropping into your heart space, leading from your heart. And we are going to look at that today. And the second thing you can do is you can do some grounding. And I don't want you to think of it so much as grounding with Mother Earth, but grounding with the cosmos through Mother Earth, right? Because you are connecting to an entire, not just galactic, but universal consciousness, and we connect through Mother Earth. because, after all, you are an earthling with human DNA. And some would say that human DNA is a really powerful technology. So that's kind of an interesting idea. We can talk about that another time. So we want to try to access what could be an impediment to our heart wisdom. Right? Our heart wisdom wants to share and wants to be out. When we allow it, our hearts want to be seen and heard and out communicating with others, right? But the usual impediments to your heart opening are things like trauma, unresolved emotion, high levels of stress, and distortion from the three-dimensional world that we're living in. Distortion meaning, the rules of our culture, the ways in which we were raised, like things like kids should be seen and not heard, that kind of distortion. And then also all of the strange events happening now all over the earth, right? So we're going to give it a try. So what I'd like you to do is just hang in with me here. The first thing we want to do is drop into the heart space. So you can do this you can sit upright or you can lean back, close your eyes, and in your inner vision, take your vision down into the heart space, and then make your way over to your heart, the organ. And then see if you can identify or locate the oldest cells of your heart. Now, the heart doesn't regenerate like other organs, so that's why when you have a heart attack, you have heart damage. So we can find some really old cells inside the heart, and I want you to just tune in and see if you can locate them. And if you can't, just use your imagination that you found them. And this is where your I am presence resides. You could think of it as I am present. But this is where that divine spark came in and ignited your being. And what is that divine spark? That is a fractal of universal consciousness that came into you. You are a part of that greater whole, and it came in through your heart, and you had an activation. And you are not the person that you think you are. You are the light. You are the light bulb, the fire that's inside your heart. And you are just possessing this body in this lifetime. Notice that when you drop into these original cells, you really feel like you're coming back home into yourself. And as you sit with this, imagine that every time you inhale, the space around your heart grows and becomes more spacious. And as you exhale, just allow that spaciousness to remain. And then inhale, grow your spacious heart another time. And then exhale, allow it to remain open. Now, creating heart spaciousness is very important. The Buddhists believe that in order to get into our positive feeling states, that we can do it through the three jewels. And that's silence, stillness, and spaciousness. Silence and stillness are very hard for most of us in Western culture. So spaciousness is a wonderful way to get into the feeling that your heart is opening by expanding and creating space and allowing your heart field to really extend out into the room. And now we want to drop a little bit of that light down through the body, down through your pelvis, through your legs, through the feet, through the floors, through all the floors of your building. Make your way through the cement block and into the rich microbial earth, teeming with all of these sentient beings that are working hard to create nutrients in our dirt. And take your inner vision a little lower, a little deeper into the earth. And it's good to have a greeting for the earth. So we'll just do a silly little greeting like, "Hi, Earth. Hi, Earth. How are you?" Greeting the earth like she is your best friend. And what that does is it creates a sense of beauty and lightheartedness and whimsy in your heart, creates an inner smile. And having a relationship of gratitude is a really wonderful place to start with the earth. And it's very simple. Thank you. Thank you, Earth. Thank you for the mountains and the flowers and the valleys. And thank you so much for composting my food and for doing everything you do to nourish me, my family, my communities. Thank you, Mother Earth. Thank you for our brethren, all of the rocks, the crystals, the plants, the trees, all of the animals, the ocean creatures, the desert dwellers. Thank you for all the crazy bugs all over the planet and all of the sentient little microbes. Thank you, Mother Earth. You're amazing. Thank you. And notice how this greeting and this gratitude changes the state of your being. And now keep yourself connected to the earth, but bring your attention back into your heart space. And I want you to think of 4 people that you're holding resentments against right now. And it could be simple things like, somebody cut you off driving, or the waiter took so long to bring the bill. Like, these are very easy and simple, but they can weigh on our hearts. So you can do something like, "I release the resentment I have toward Thingy for not paying her full portion of the dinner bill." Or, "I release the resentment I have toward so and so for saying such and such." Try not to be too global about it, right? Try to stay really personal. Like, I release the resentment I have. I release the resentment I have. Any small or big resentments you have today, just release 4 of them. And now, as you sit in your heart space, you might feel a lightness, a clarity that wasn't there before. You might even feel a new wisdom coming in, a sensation, a color. It could be you just know something new, or you're getting a message, or you're seeing a picture, a movie in your head. And when you open your heart space, find spaciousness, and release resentment, now we have room for more of this beautiful, positive feeling states to come in and take root, right? So you might feel a greater sense of beauty or joy forming in your heart center. You release the heaviness of resentment, and that heaviness can drain your energy. Now, maybe these 4 resentments that you release, maybe these aren't too heavy, right? But imagine you have a little resentment bucket sitting in your heart, and then every day you're just throwing these little resentments in there. And resentment is a dense energy. It's a denser light, a denser energy. And the thing to remember is that it collects and it makes you tired. When you have unresolved resentment, unresolved emotion, that heavy, dense frequency that you're carrying around with you makes you tired. So we have to let it go. Letting it go frees your heart to receive wisdom, love, beauty, joy, and some of the positive feeling states. And who doesn't need that right now in our lives? My mind is open to the wisdom of my heart. And as your heart becomes more and more spacious, notice how much room it has for beauty and joy. And now imagine a day where beauty and joy are your driving feeling states and not doom, resentment, and oh my God, my to-do list is so long. This is one way we co-create our realities, by dropping into our hearts and allowing our minds to be open to the wisdom of our hearts, and making sure that we release any heaviness in the heart that could be an impediment to beauty. And that's it for today's episode of Ritual and Science. I really appreciate that you've joined me. Let me just open up a few things here. I am really kind of a dunce when it comes to all of this technology. It has not been easy to learn all this stuff. So the first thing I would love is for you to join my mailing list. I don't send out a lot of emails, but if you'd like to jump on my list, I would love to have you, and or even just respond to this video and let me know what you'd like me to cover on this podcast or YouTube show. The next thing I would love for you to do is the Body Wisdom Mineral Analysis Test. Now, this is an HTMA test, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis test. And what that means is that you're going to take a little snip of your hair, ding, and you're going to get enough on a little piece of paper until the paper moves. And when the paper moves, you have enough, and you put that in an envelope and you send it to the lab. And then the lab looks at the last 3 months and what your body is doing in terms of minerals and toxic metals. And it can really create a wonderful starting point for you as you build health. So this is the Body Wisdom Mineral Analysis. And if you buy it, then you have access to my portal, and there's educational videos and all sorts of really great information. And then from there, you could join the Hummingbird Path. I'm going to be launching that later in the spring. And the Hummingbird Path is a transformative experience for people who really want to build health. And we're going to look at the Body Wisdom Mineral Analysis Test, and we're going to figure out specifically where you should be making changes in your life so that your health can improve. And that's everything from hormones to thyroid to blood sugar. It's really amazing. So the Hummingbird Path is where I combine both energy work and science. And we make some real transformation and start dreaming our world into being. If you'd like to join me for a sound bath, I do have a sound bath every Friday morning on TikTok at 8:30. I mean, it is a little weird that I'm using TikTok, but let me tell you, it's a great platform for sound baths. So that's where I am. I'd love for you to join me. People are so kind. I get the nicest compliments and just a really lovely atmosphere. So I do that every Friday morning. Maybe you want to do a crystal toss and find out the status of your energy bodies and what's happening in your light body. And if that's something you'd like to do, I would love to do it. Crystal readings are 1 hour, and they're really great, really fun, and they give you a lot of information sort of about where you are now and what your next steps are for continued transformation. And I think last but not least, if you want to do an online energy session, you can book a call here. You can sign up. If you use the code NECTAR, you can get a discount. And I am taking clients. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on Lisa Lansing Wellness, Ritual and Science. So until next time, be gentle with your body. Test, don't guess. Be honest with your spirit. Allow your mind to open to the wisdom of your heart. And keep choosing rituals that bring you back to yourself, not take you outside of yourself. Thank you for being here. If this moved you, please share it, save it, send it to someone who needs a reminder that healing is both sacred and scientific. Tend to your rituals and trust your body. Big love, everyone. Bye.